Hello everybody, it is June 8th, 2020. Gearing up on my Independent for Governor campaign, and I have with me a dear colleague and a serious activist, Chris Pratt, who has been calling into question some of the important issues of our times. He's one of the people who is fighting while others are sleeping, and thank you, Chris.
Well, thanks, thank you. You're doing the same.
And this is Harley. He's for Lieutenant Governor, just. So we are here today talking, as we do, about the sinister things that we need to worry about as a people. And I wanted to talk with Chris about what is the most the biggest concern you have today for the public of Vermont?
I think what I have for Vermonters is the same as it is for that everybody has, is to try and awaken people to what's really going on. And I think the COVID thing is a glaring example of the depth of deception that is going on, that it includes it's government, it's media, it's the health profession, and it's worldwide. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't really look at this COVID thing. I mean, if you think about it for a second, within 3 weeks, COVID was international, 180 countries, 80 different languages, all of these thousands of media were all saying exactly the same thing, that they had the same treatment, they're doing contact tracing. I mean, they recommended lockdowns, which never have been done ever in the history of mankind. So this was, I think, a plan. They call it a plandemic or a scamdemic. Or I just think that even if there was an emergency, it's over. I mean, there's no, even if you give them that, which I don't, I think the whole thing's a scam, to be honest with you, but even if you give them that, the flu season's over. We've had tiny, there's no reason for an emergency. Right. So there's no way you can look at it and say there's an emergency here, so why are we doing anything?
Right. So what we've been talking about today is, I brought up that I looked up the flu deaths in Vermont for 2017. They were 84, and now they're somewhere around 55. So we have less flu deaths this time than we did on an average flu season, yet we've shut everything down. And then we were talking about the masks, and I've really stood for needing oxygen, and we've actually had at least one death nationally where somebody was told to wear a mask while driving, and who especially needed their oxygen, and breathing their own CO2 caused them to crash and die. So I was given a mask today, one of those shields.
Oh yeah, at the health food store.
Yes, I was, and I was thankful for it, and I think going forward that we should really think about stopping having everybody wear these masks, because they're breathing in their own CO2. I know people who are lightheaded. It's absolutely the worst thing we can do for our health is to deprive ourselves of CO2, but we could be using these shields.
Well, I mean, I think the whole thing is kind of ridiculous to begin with, because if you look at the total number of deaths for Vermont, including COVID, it's less than last year.
Right.
So I mean, if there was this huge pandemic and there was all these people dying, the number of deaths would be higher.
Right.
Because COVID would be on top of the normal ones. They're just reclassifying people that are dying anyway and calling them COVID.
Right.
And I think that, and when you can't get that answer from anyone. You can't get it from Vermont Digger, you can't get it from 7 Days. Right. They don't want you to ask those questions because it'll be obvious. They don't want to say, how old were they when they died? Where did they die? Did they die in a nursing home? Did they not? Another thing that it's this weird, this is really off the wall, and you may want to cut this out of there when you do it, but when I looked at the number of people that have died in Vermont, I can't think of the exact numbers now, but when we had 55 deaths, I think 37 were in Chittenden County. Chittenden County represents 22% of the state's population. but they represent 70% of the COVID deaths.
That's right. So then that's where we've been really concerned because everybody in Vermont has complied out of an abundance of caution. And I think an abundance of caution is appropriate, but then now that it's over, we need to assess what we've done, and we also need to look into other arenas where we aren't being cautious enough. And one of them, I think we have enough evidence to look very carefully at the rollout of 5G, because we do know that the hot spots of COVID correspond to the hot spots of 5G. And I'm not suggesting that COVID is 5G, but there is scientific evidence that the 5G affects the immuno response in the body and depletes it. So what has been happening in the Burlington region, of course, is what?
Well, they have the highest concentration of cellular activity. That's
Right.
one thing.
And they've been rolling out 5G there.
Yeah, but one of the things that I started to think about when I got involved in this whole thing, if we have 70, and it's pretty much a fact, we have between 50 and 100 trillion cells in our body. I mean, that's a lot of cells.
100 trillion cells. Yeah.
So you can imagine how microscopic, and there's this whole intracellular communication system between these tiny things.
Right.
So it only makes sense, just like a magnet affects graphite, and it's infinitely bigger, it's like the Empire State Building compared to our cells, that you would think that obviously if there's a change in the what's it called?
The magnetic frequencies
In the background,
in the
your
environment.
environmental thing, that it could well affect your health.
That's right.
And it presents, radioactive sickness presents just like the flu. You get stuffy, you have sniffles, you have a cough,
Dry
you have a
cough.
cold.
Pulmonary issues, you can't
So,
breathe.
Yeah, a lot of people think that the next wave of the virus is going to be the first wave of 5G being turned on. They're going to sync them, so that a lot of people get sick, and it can be blamed on the virus.
Yeah, well, you have done the digging, and you have done the digging to find out where some of these procedures are so sinister, because they go back to the wealthiest on the planet, and their aims are not for the good of all. So it really is worse than a scary movie, and we should be very thankful that there's those among us like Chris who are willing to dig deeper, and that's exactly why I'm standing for governor, is to call together Vermonters to look at the deeper questions. Why did Bill Gates have a Event 201 right before the COVID?
Yeah,
that was
planned pandemic.
That was in December 2019, and in November 2018, who patented the COVID? So we need to get to the bottom of this, and the only people we can really trust are Vermonters. So that's the basis of my campaign, is to call people's assemblies to ask the question. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think, it's nice that she compliments me, but I hate politics, and she's in it. And I think it's even more exceptional to take somebody that's prepared to go through the knotholes she's going to have to go through to get her truth across. And I think your effort should be praised for that, because very few there may be more like me that think it, but there's very few that actually go pound on the legislative door and start holding some of these people accountable for what really is a huge. I mean, it goes deeper than anybody really. It goes so deep that I don't even want to get involved. But she's not, and she's out there fighting, and she needs all the support that she can get for that. And I'm supporting her however I can, but indirectly. But you guys should be directly supporting. You've got a Vermonter who's standing in for Vermont. She's not part of one of these, or are you?
I'm not your usual candidate. No, I'm. What my motto is, and what my purpose is is to invoke Article 7 of our Constitution, which allows us to transform our governance, self-governance. And I want to do it before we get rioting and protesting and pitchforks. I want to do it by calling people together in assemblies, by organizing neighborhoods. So we will begin to invert what is now a pyramid, where the orders are coming down from the Gates Foundation and the Bezos to the legislators, and we're going around doing the wrong thing for our health and for each other, and instead bring the power back to the people. So the power back to the people, taking the first step to disengage from a corporate political power structure that, if is allowed to go forward, will make our future very, very dark indeed. So I have a call to action, and I'm calling you to be part of it. You can go to my website, and you also can volunteer to call, phone, or host a lawn sign. I'm getting donations, and I'm talking with you like we're talking, and yeah, that's how
I mean,
I'm gonna
everybody now has to kind of stand up for who they are and what they believe. No longer can you point your fingers at the bad guys and do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
When it's wrong, you have to be able to say, this is wrong. Mm-hmm. This is amoral. I'm not going to stand for it. Mm-hmm. And if you do, then it's going to be obvious to everybody else what you stand for. I mean, we need to bring virtue, character, and morality
That's right.
back into the process.
That's right.
And, so you're going to have to be brave, and you're going to have to be strong, and you're going to have to be able to say, I support Emily because. You're going to have to stand up for what it is. Mm-hmm. And not because of fear of taxes or fear of losing money, but standing for virtue. Because, the other has been what's dominated politics. It's been
right.
Money and fear. And we need to change that paradigm. You have a candidate that will do that.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for watching.